Internet problems tonight, but the genius of Brendan Martin, we got back up. Here's the open. Stand by. We'll get the show started.
Yes, it's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye.
You ready, champ? I'm ready for this my whole life.
Okay, Scott, we're up.
Small. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Well, good evening. I guess we made it on the air. A miracle of miracles. We had internet problems tonight. Thanks to Brendan Martin for shepherding us through the Cox issues. And we are on the air for whatever length of time you want us to be. I see 6 of you stayed through it. Thank you very, very much. Don't know what else to say. I'm sorry. This technical stuff will drive you insane. Expect to get a hold of Scott Carter, hopefully, here in a minute. He'll be joining the program. While we're waiting, we'll do a quick commercial and get caught up on that. And Gators, of course, had a big win tonight, but bad news. Lost their star player for how long, I don't know. Dan Bond joins the program. I think I see Scott Carter coming now. Let's just go right to him and say, good evening and sorry for the delay, Scott.
Hey, buddy. What's going on, man?
Oh, man.
Nothing like
no, you never have that problem, though. So that's the thing. You never have it, right?
Well, what's going on?
So, Scott, thank you for hanging in there. We had a whole outage in our area, but we're back now for a few minutes, and I wanted to get to the ball game tonight. Big win for the Gators. Big meaning they needed it. They'd lost 3 in a row. They went 79-64 over Ole Miss. Bad news, though.
Yeah, Colin Castleton went out of the game in the second half, and you could tell by his reaction that he was in some serious pain. And right after the game, the Gators announced that he broke his hand. So, that's hard to imagine him being able to get back too quick from that. And, it's going to change the whole complexion of the team, buddy, because he is, the offense revolves around him. It's not a team that is a very good outside shooting team. And, you add those factors in and take away a guy averaging, 16 points, 3 blocks a game.
And huge the last 5 or 6 games.
Yeah,
he averaged 30 and 20.
Yeah, his career these last 3 or 4 games. And very, just dejectful news for the Gators tonight.
Yeah.
They got a win that they had to have, and we're going to be saying that really for the rest of the season in terms of their NCAA tournament hopes. They've got to kind of win out and maybe make a run in the SEC tournament, but that got a lot harder after what happened tonight with Castle.
Yeah, I'd say it's probably impossible, but,
Yeah.
It's funny, I was just thinking about this the last 4 or 5 days, the things that, you'd like to write about something that's kind of positive every now and then. What my column on this week, how Colin Castleton has carried this team so gallantly and has been such a consistent factor who waited his turn, has a great work ethic, and now it's his proud moment to shine, and now this. Ugh.
Yeah, it's one of those things, buddy, where, guy's been having the best season of his career, and, he came back for an opportunity to do it one more time, and it's not going, I'm sure, at the way he fully expected, but he's done nothing to hurt his chances at the next level. It's actually helped him, especially with that performance at Kentucky against Tshiebwe. I think that opened a lot of people's eyes on what he can do as an internal, inside presence. And it's just one of those things. You hate to see any player right at the end of his career get hurt and, miss an opportunity, the postseason, because that's what it's all about at this level. And just it kind of par for the course for the Gators this season, right?
Mhm.
I mean,
And that's
a
true.
lot has going right with this team, and this is probably the worst thing yet. And you just hope that, I don't know the severity of the injury, but for them, to announce right after the game that he broke his hand, it's not good.
No. And Scott, you're about as optimistic a guy as I know. You're always upbeat, and you write some really great stuff that's upbeat. And I like to think of myself as a glass half full kind of guy like you. And I'm thinking, sooner or later this is going to turn. I'm thinking, what are the good things happening? Gymnastics teams has been a fantastic story. They're really a good story right now, fun to watch. Softball team, they're romping. I guess they won again tonight. We're going to find out in a minute. Yeah, Kyle Curtis is coming in to report on that. And then baseball team has got a great opportunity to really make a statement now. And now the hope springs eternal. Anyway, spring practice, and maybe Florida finds a quarterback. You're trying to build the optimism up a little bit. And this is a downer. Sorry.
Yeah, I think this spring you're going to see a lot more teams doing well in the national rankings, and I think the softball and baseball teams, no shock at all if both of those teams advance to the College World Series. I think they're both very talented. They're going to, they're both in the top 5 or 10 of the country. So I think that's going to be a good season. The track team is doing what it does. I mean, Mike Holloway's built a tremendous program on the men and women. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they fare in the postseason. And as you said, the gymnastics team's second in the country. I think they're going to be right there if they stay healthy. They're going to be in that Final Four, competing for a national championship. Trinity Thomas, to me, is the best athlete on campus right now. I mean, what she's doing individually is setting records not only at Florida but in the entire sport. So, I think there's going to be some good things to go along. And then, we all know that football drives so much of the conversation and the mood. It's always good for spring football. And when you have this many players, I mean, I was on another show this week and they asked me, realistically, what can I shoot or expect out of this team in 2023? And I mean, it's just, I look at where they ended. I mean, they were a 500 team last year. So let's start there. And I think they certainly have potential to be better there. I think this recruiting class is the best from top to bottom that they've had in a while. So if some of those people can contribute right away, 17 of the mid-year enrollees are already on campus working out. And then, like you said, the quarterback situation is going to be watched very closely in the spring. I think everybody wants to see Graham Mertz and what he's going to do in Billy Napier's offense. Jack Miller remains somewhat of a mystery.
Yeah.
I know Billy is not ready to say, it's Mertz's job. He spoke openly at his last press conference. They're going to try to get another scholarship quarterback on the roster by the fall, and they will. And then Max Brown's the guy who's playing baseball. I never really saw him factoring in much in 2023.
Yeah, not in the spring. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, that's not a big deal. To me, it's going to be Miller and Mertz, see which guy leaves camp in the lead, and then see who they add from the transfer portal in the off season over the summer, and then we'll go through this all again in August, right? But the good thing is you'll have a lot more experienced players than they have right now.
Well, as soon as they do the cut downs, and as soon as they do the rosters in 3 deeps, some of these teams have got excessive talent at some positions, and several of them are quarterbacks. Doesn't Ole Miss have 3 top-ranked quarterbacks? I mean, There's going to be some matriculation, to use that favorite word. And although Dan Bond's asking when the portal is opened again, I think it's after spring practice is over. I believe that's when it is. You know when it is? It's coming up later this in June or whatever.
Yeah, it's after spring. I think the spring semester.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of players in there. And there's going to be some players who signed at schools, at the early signing period.
Yeah.
They're going to test it out. It's amazing. It's like the NFL now, buddy. The free agency is all year long, man.
It really is. I was talking to a coach last week about this, and a former coach. He said, "Man, when I coached, we had seasons, and we could end it, and we could do our recruiting, and then we take a little time off and go to the beach and come back and get ready for the fall and whatever. But now, Eddie, you're right. It's endless. It never stops." I was thinking about this today. about how optimistic, how do you feel? Football season's over finally, at least except for spring football. We know XFL, USFL, etc. But the natural cycles, and quite frankly, I was telling David Moulton this. I love football. This is what I live for. But you know what? I get a little fatigued, and it's constant. It's the transfer portal. It's recruiting, whatever. And now we've got a break. And I rather enjoy watching gymnastics. I've gotten around like watching it. I like watching Gator baseball. I like watching Rays baseball. I like watching golf or whatever other things. We can't, until spring starts, I don't know the day of the spring practice, but sometime in mid-April, whenever that is, we won't say too much about it. Although there's always ongoing discussions about football all the time. And now we're already trying to make rosters from players we don't know or haven't seen, but that's what we do at Florida. So trying to figure that all out. So I'm kind of like ready to pause for a minute and breathe and come back to it and be refreshed. What about you?
No, I'm the same way. I grew up when, I've always been a person who, I enjoy football during football season. Then I'm getting ready for baseball. I'm excited about that. And then, I follow major leagues all through the summer. And then about come, early August, I started thinking about college football a lot. And of course, as doing what we do for a living, we understand that, the interest in college football is huge, but also so much of it, and it's internet driven. It's just beating the same dead horse. There's really not going to be any significant thing that affects what could happen this year until later on in the summer. Yeah. And, we're working out. Hopefully nobody gets hurt. If, about the only things that newsworthy this time of year in college football are, obviously, transfers have changed it, but the bulk of the cycle is finished at this point. Obviously, injuries in spring is important, getting out of there healthy. And then, once in a while, a guy does something stupid off the field that makes headlines. So you hope that you don't hear too much about it. But there's these people who, wondering about the third string linebacker. I'm not one of those, buddy.
Yeah.
I would much rather pay attention to what the baseball team's going to do, or in gymnastics win a national championship, or the NBA playoffs. I have to bounce around the state saying it. I can never hope those like Stephen A. Smith and those guys. And I know they make a lot of money to do that, but I couldn't get myself up every day to talk about the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. And, there are people who do that, and God bless them. I do like talking Gator football, like SEC football, pretty much around the year, but I don't know about how much. And there's this one story that I'm going to ask you about. I'm not going to keep you much longer tonight because I got you started late, and I know you have to get up early, and you got chores and stuff. Got to go run 6 miles tomorrow and do all that sort of stuff. Looking good, keeping in shape. And
I usually pass you.
Yeah, exactly. You pass me every morning. I just want to talk about this story. It's one of these way too early stories, and so we get it. But apparently, and I missed it when they did, ESPN put out, ranked all 100 and something teams. Did you see that story?
Ranked, I have not.
They ranked every team. And the SEC rankings of the teams, and I picked up on it, and I thought it was kind of interesting. We talked about it earlier in the week. Now, you can guess, these are the SEC teams, how they ranked in the top 110 teams nationally. Well, number one was Georgia, no surprise there. Number 4 is Alabama, no surprise there. Tennessee was 6 nationally. LSU was 7. So you got those are the top 10 nationally. Then you go into Texas, not an SEC team yet, but soon will be. Texas A&M at 17. Ole Miss is 18, and Florida's 20, which I was a little bit surprised at. So a little high. Now this is based on the productivity you got coming back from last year. How many points you got, whatever. And then it goes on down where it's got Mississippi State at 23, Kentucky 24. This is a surprise. Auburn 26. I would have thought Auburn would have been much higher than that, and really probably in the top 15 based on what I've been hearing about. Missouri, Arkansas was 29th, which sounds a little low. Missouri's 32, about where they go. South Carolina was 33. Now, everybody I've been hearing about talking is raving about what they're doing up in Columbia, and how the recruiting season they had, some of the players they got, and they're talking about they're going to be a contender, and they're ranked in this poll 33rd for whatever that's worth. Vandy was 71st. So I would say you get whatever you want to make out of that, but Auburn and I would think South Carolina would be higher in that in my poll. How about you?
Yeah, I'm like you. I'm a little surprised maybe at Florida being 20th. What that tells me is the SEC is going to be really good next year if the early season prognosticators are right on. But that's good. I mean, it's nice to other people have that opinion. I'm excited to see, really, as we talked earlier, the spring, just some of the new guys. I think that probably speaks more than anything, buddy, to they had a good recruiting class. Talking about the Gators specifically,
Right.
They got a veteran quarterback in Mertz. He's got a track record. Nothing's going to surprise him at Florida. It's just a matter of how well he executes. And I sat down with him the other day for a story I'm working on, and I asked him straight up, like, okay, I mean, you could go into other places. Why choose Florida? Coming off his 6th and 7th season, he says, man, when I came down here to visit in December, I went to a practice. And he says, man, those coaches were coaching so hard. And he says, I need that because obviously he wants to reach the next level. But he also said, I want that. I mean, I want to be coached hard because I want to improve. And him and Napier really hit it off. So I think that's a positive sign there.
Very positive. I hadn't heard that before. Yeah, very positive.
Proven players in ETN and Montrell Johnson and Ricky Pearsall. So I think offensively, I like their prospects, really. I know they're going to have to do some work on the offensive line to develop some cohesion, but they lost some pieces, but they got some pieces in the transfer portal. So I'm really more curious than anything, buddy, to see how the young players on defense step up, and I'm really interested to see who is going to be the next Gators' great defensive lineman, man. It's been a while. And, Dexter was a nice player.
Yeah.
He passed the eye test, but I never thought he was a great player.
Well, Dexter's coming back now. My man Dexter's coming back. He ain't going anywhere.
Well, I think he's a good player. I mean, he's going to get drafted. There's no doubt about it.
I hear what you're saying. He's not an elite player. You're right.
I'm thinking of guys like Alex Brown.
Yeah, not an elite player. All American, whatever.
Floyd. I'm thinking of Kevin Carter's.
Sure.
They need one of those guys, and it's been a while since they've had them. So
right. Well, let me just show you this chart, which the ESPN did. That's the poll. That's the top 25 in the poll that I was just telling you about there. So
that's a lot higher than they finished last season. So that's a step in the right direction, buddy.
Yeah.
And the great thing is that's why we all get excited about this stuff because everything's fresh. It's a new season.
Yeah.
Billy Napier, and I think he's just getting started, man. Last year was truly a transition season, like I don't think the program's had before. Quite frankly, they've had coaching changes and all that, but I don't know if they've had a total reboot like they had last year. And it's disappointing the way they ended, obviously, but I'm still a big believer in what Billy's doing from top to bottom, and I think he's going to figure some things out, man. I really do.
I think I hear that optimism in your voice, and I like Billy too, and I think he's a good football coach. But sometimes good football coaches don't get the breaks and don't coach as well as they could have.
Sure.
It isn't enough. I mean, Will Muschamp was a good football coach, but not here. And you go on, and so. And so much of it is about recruiting now and whatever. But, yeah, I mean, I think Billy has a really good organization. I think he's a good family. I can see why Graham Mertz would come in and like the environment, But in having said all that, you look at the schedule for next year, anything over 6-7 wins is going to be difficult, all right? Is that going to keep the Wolves from a door? And can Billy last long enough to make that mark? Because I think he's the guy, but Gator fans are not patient, as you know, and I don't know. I just don't know, and I feel kind of bad for Billy, but on the other hand, he's getting paid well, so whatever. So we'll see how it turns out. It's really a conundrum, isn't it?
Yeah, he's a big boy. That's part of the job. But
Yeah.
again, I think if you were to write him off after 2 seasons, I think that's
Mistake, unless he goes, 2-10 or something. Then it's,
I mean, yeah, if the wheels fall off and there's total chaos,
Yeah.
that's not going to happen. I can tell you that. There's not the way he runs it. It's never going to be a total chaos, kind of like we've seen at other places in the past. But I will say they got to show some improvement. We all know that. But is improvement going to suddenly be from 6 wins to 10 wins? Highly unlikely. I mean,
good question.
I'm thinking again, like I thought last year, buddy. If they were to get out of next season with 8 or 9 wins, I think that's a nice progress.
Yeah.
But when you have new players and you don't know what they're really going to do, maybe a couple of these guys are truly difference makers that they haven't had in a while and can make that record better. But again, that's why it's fun to think about the potential in this and talk about it. But I will probably, like I said, be paying more attention to Gator baseball than the third string linebacker for the next couple of months.
Yeah, I get it. He deserves it. You're inundated with it all the time. And looking at it from 2 perspectives. One, that you got to be patient, you let the man do his job, trust his process, and all those things that people like to say. However, if you look out on the other side and say, okay, here's a guy who came here, got paid a lot of money, right? $7.5 million, whatever it was, and another $7 million to hire other people, and a brand new facility built on his watch. We all said, well, I'll never be able to recruit until they got it, right? All these things they wanted, and they got it. Now the guy might say, it's time to show me something. I want to see what this is about. We've invested as far as like any board of directors would, and say, all right, I'm in, I've invested, what do I get for my money? And that's where we're going to be. And a lot depends on how he manages, because as you know, Scott, this place can eat you alive. We've seen it happen to other coaches, and how he manages that angst and the abrasiveness of Gator fans, and there's some really nasty ones out there in the internet. I think he'll be all right, but still, it takes a lot out of you, doesn't it? You've seen it.
Yeah, I mean, I was sometimes just the negativity, especially on social media, and I have to be on there a lot. It does, don't some of these fans, don't they have other hobbies? And there's nothing that I can say of great meaning or anything about last season or really going into this next season. In terms of where we are in the calendar right now, like we've talked here. But I mean, there's no doubt there's pressure there on Billy to show improvement in year 2. I get that. That's very fair. I mean, I think they need to show improvement. But again, I think you're really unrealistic, and you're not really in tune with the big picture if you think they're suddenly going to go 12-0 next year like TCU did this past year, unless Graham Mertz is a Heisman candidate.
Yeah, there you go.
Unless a couple of these defensive guys end up being studs. So it's not impossible.
Yeah.
We've seen it. But in the SEC, it's a lot different than what TCU had to go through to get 12-0 last year. It's a lot different,
Yeah.
But if they could show significant improvement and have another big recruiting class next year, I think that is a great sign. But also, I've talked about this with other people too, maybe you. I do think just watching him over the course of the last 13 months, I think Billy's eyes were opened some in a lot of the stuff you're talking about. Just the way the fan base is here engaged. It's probably more engaged than he's ever seen it. Certainly more than he's ever had to deal with it.
Right.
And that's something you can only become accustomed to when you go through it. So having that a year under his belt, I think, will help him. And I'm curious to see what his tone is, when he goes out on his speaking tour soon. See what his message is, what his tone is, and he's going to have some tough questions from fans on that speaking tour. So it's going to be interesting just to see how that plays out. But again, I think Billy is just so even kill. I think that helps him in the spotlight that a Gators coach lives in.
Great points, and if you go back over history, and I hate to go too far back because people say, "Oh, that old guy, there he goes." I've just seen guys get eaten alive here,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah,
And ever since I was in school, back in the days of the Gutenberg press, and whatever. I mean, there was always think of the old hub. Newspapers were the key. Really, that was your main source of communication. And there were racks as far as you could see. I want to say 15, 16 racks of newspapers in Florida, all in front of the hub every day with a new section and a new sports story in it. And the media was all over it. And if anything happened, I mean, I know guys who covered big time schools like UCLA, and USC. One guy covered USC. He said, "You know how many people were at practice, buddy?" I said, "How many?" He said, "One. Me. One." Okay. Now, look, we've had as many as 30 people at practice or maybe more when they let us in.
yeah.
Now we can't
yeah.
get in, so we don't know.
I've often wondered, like, even in today's world, like, I still think Florida probably has more media coverage on a daily basis than maybe about anybody other than maybe Ohio State, Texas. I mean, they're definitely in the top 5. And in the SEC, they're right there, probably with, I guess, LSU or Alabama, clearly. I don't think Georgia has, it seems like to me, just from
Nobody
what
does. Nobody
yeah,
does.
what I think, yeah, Florida is a different animal there, and it's that's why I think what we started talking about here. That's why it's probably good to kind of break away from it a little bit because it helps your
Right.
helps your mind,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, two things
so
here.
useful.
You're right. Two things here that are very important. One is Billy hasn't had the worst of it yet. He may have had a few bumps, but he had never had them come after him, like some coaches have been, and deserved it. By the way, he's never had. I mean, that can get ugly in a hurry. And the second thing is, ask he's around, Norm Carlson. You knew him well. And this is a true story that I wrote this years ago. That at one time, I want to say it was in the 70s and 80s, Florida had the largest traveling contingent of writers and media than any college team in America.
Yeah. Well, that just speaks to the state. I mean, it was definitely a great newspaper state when the business was humming along in those years. Because you got the big cities here: Miami, Tampa, Jacksonville, Orlando, St. Pete, and then you have your local and smaller markets, and that was that was really before all the pro teams in the state too, buddy. And now today is a different world. Most of the people who go on the road nowadays, I mean, it's mostly internet writers. You don't see other than Orlando Sentinel, you don't see newspaper coverage on the road much. It's mostly. But of course, today's media, a lot of people who consume media, they think it's all the same thing, and it's totally not.
Right.
And I hate that term media because it's so, players. I'll have a talk with players once in a while, like, they'll think the media is anything that's on social media. It could be a parent complaint. Well, the media is saying this. I'm like, no, the media is not saying that. That was a Georgia fan site writing a story just to rile the Gator fans up. That's not the media,
Right.
But
And some guy with 25 followers on Instagram or something or whatever.
Yeah.
They think they're part of the media. They're not part of the media.
No,
Just because you're in
I
social.
think your smart fans obviously know that. They know the most reliable sources and stuff of that nature. But there's also an element out there that, it's a thing where people like to be involved, and a lot of them are out there with their strong opinions, not doing really any reporting. But boy, those opinions sometimes, that's where it kind of gets, I guess, loud, at times.
For sure. And I'll get to Kyle in a minute. He's out there, can't get in. He wants to talk about Colin Castleton broken, if you didn't hear, has a broken hand. We don't know any more details. Scott, nice enough to come on with us after he had some problems getting the internet up tonight and doing a great job. And so I'm trying to hang in there and find a positive stream of things to think about, write about, because people might not know it, but writers get tired of writing negative stories too. They really do. It wears them down. Scott's one of the nicest guys in the world. Get the nice laugh and the smile, writes good stuff. But and the poor guys, they get beat up on the media, who really want hard workers, right? Who are trying to do what all the critics want them to do and try to report what they think the truth is, and then they get catch hell from the fans about it. So it's hard. It's not an easy job, I must say. So help them out a little bit. All right, once again, I want to wrap up tonight's basketball game. Florida wins 79-64, now 14-12 in the regular season, 7-6 in the SEC. Riley Kugel, my favorite player, had a pretty good night. He had 12. I think he had 12 points and was hit some threes, played really well. It was 10. Florida was 10 for 17 in threes. They shot 60, almost 60%, with the highest percentage, 59% of any game they had in the SEC this year. So that's good. But if Colin Castle indeed has a broken hand, which Scott says they announced, this does not bode well for this team. They're going to have a hard time getting to win any tournament. I'd hate to see it happen to a young man who's given his all. I wanted so badly for him to get a chance to go to the tournament. He came back to do that, and he deserved how he played, and then this. Well, that's a tough one.
Yeah, if it does turn out he can't play for the rest of the season, I hope that on senior day, Gator fans come out and send him off the right way, because, he has given it his all. And, he's improved so remarkably in his career at Florida.
Yeah.
He's gotten better every year. And I think we're going to see him at the next level. I think he's an NBA player. He's going to fit in somewhere up there. He protects the rim so well. And, he's developed his other parts of his game. I think that's going to help him. But, buddy, like I said earlier, man, it just kind of puts a damper on a nice win over Ole Miss.
Yeah.
And now it's just like, okay, you hate to see the season kind of like this, where, okay, let's see what's going to happen. Not expecting a lot, but I've seen strange things happen when guys or a team loses their key guy. They've got 14 other guys, so maybe one of these guys can seize the opportunity and do something we haven't seen yet. But it's going to be a tall task, obviously.
Yeah, it's an old step-up mentality, next man up and all that we've seen before. But we wish him the best. He certainly has given us something to think about, and we appreciate all he did, And both ends of the court, by the way. I think he had just under 200 blocks and had a chance to
third all time in school history in blocks.
Yeah, and we thought, well, he'll have that record maybe to break. Well, not going to happen now, so feel badly. Scott, thank you so much for hanging in there with me tonight. I appreciate it. It's always good to have you on the show, but especially tonight.
Back up in a column, man. When that internet goes, it's like I left my cell phone the other day in my car, and I was walking around. I was like, man, I just felt like I was walking around without a shirt or something. So I get it, man.
We're so unfortunately rely so much on that stuff. Yeah. But thank you, Scott. Always love having you on. Good stuff, man. You take care. Hope to talk to you again soon. All right.
Have a good night, my man.
Scott Carter, one of the all-time greats, really a hell of a guy, and does a solid job. FloridaGators.com, and good to have him. We're going to see if we can get Kyle. He's been struggling. Well, maybe we got him. Looks like we might. He's been trying to get on here, and let's go back and see if we get Kyle. Kyle, are you there, buddy? How you doing? Hey, Kyle.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh yeah, man, great, awesome. All right, wonderful. Well, I got a good news and bad news. Good news is your own. The bad news, we haven't gotten a commercial in yet. I got to run one. All right, stand by. Here's folks from Meldon's Law, and we'll come back with Kyle, and Kyle's going to talk about this. Well, good news, bad news. Good news is that the basketball team, the good news is the softball team won again, and the bad news is Colin Castle's out for the season. Stand by.
When you're a member of the Gator Nation, you know what it means to never back down. Meldon Law has been a proud supporter of the Gator Nation since 1971. Two forces that won't back down. As the old saying goes, if you can't beat 'em, join 'em.
All right, thanks very much. Melton Law won't back down. Neither will Kyle. He didn't back down. He's been out with Bath. He's waiting on me. I texted him and said, well, we're out. We're down. We can't get in. He hung in there, man. Kyle, how you doing, man? Thanks
I was trying to get out there. So the Katie Presley Stadium was looking nice tonight after the girls won softball. So I was trying to get out there for you guys, but like I said, there's always some sort of technological difficulties we've got to get through.
Boy, that's the truth. Sure is. Well, anyway, for those you follow Kyle, you know the kind of work he's been doing lately, doing some terrific stuff for Gator Bait and on this program, and he's becoming quite a writer. And Kyle, talk about you had several stories this week, but let's talk about the one right now, which is a softball team, which is scored a bunch of runs. I mean, unbelievable. They would save some of those runs.
Yeah, no, they're Tim Walton and his squad is starting off to absolute historic start. And even after tonight, they've run ruled 5 straight opponents to start the season. And I mean, that's kind of just unheard of. The game's over in 5 innings. And within that span, they're not even playing full games. They have the most runs that they've ever scored through a 5-game span also in that time span period. So they're crushing it, and you know, it's been a couple of years since the national championship for that softball, but they've been able to, you know, hold up that Gator standard, and sitting at number 3 right now, and I wouldn't expect it to, you know, keep rising and maybe at number 1. So they've absolutely exceeded expectations and are killing it.
Skylar Wallace is such a terrific player. Talk about some of the other players on that team.
Skylar Wallace is absolutely wonderful. Kendra Falby, she is a outfielder, and she's one of those people who super good IQ, is able to go out there, run the bases. And then we also have some sluggers. I mean, Riley Trilsick, she pitched for us tonight, back-to-back games for against Jacksonville, and been able to go out there and just produce and be able to pitch a complete game in those scenarios, which has been great. The bullpen's been really deep. Who else do we have? Skylar Wallace drove in. Avery Goals 1 for 2. We had 11 hitters. Katie Chrysler was able to play to run tonight. So it's really just been a team effort, 1 through 9 for you know, the whole Gators lineup.
Larry Gross says his favorite player is Falby.
Yeah.
So, there's some stars on that team for sure. Well, it's going to be fun to follow them, and baseball. Baseball is going to be interesting this spring. And I saw a long article on The Athletic, and there was a bunch of writers, baseball college writers, talking about the teams in the country. And they mentioned a bunch of teams and never mentioned O'Sullivan or the Gators at all. And I went, well, what have I been reading? That Florida was ranked top 5, top 4, top whatever. I don't know. I guess the word didn't get around. What do you think?
I think that, you know, the Florida baseball, you know, whole program has kind of always had that Alabama football recruiting kind of impact in the whole baseball world. And, you know, they've been getting hyped up these past few years. And, you know, it's safe to say as a baseball fan and for the program and the expectations that they've kind of underwhelmed here these past 3 or 4 years, even though they've had some of the best talent in the nation. And, you know, coming into this season, not as many people may not be talking about them as Omaha favorites leading in, but I think that's kind of a good thing. This is a good mix of lineup of, you know, highly talented transfer players coming in. You have some good veteran leaders who have experience. And then you also have, you know, young guys coming in with 5-star talent who got drafted, chose to come to Gainesville instead. So, you know, I think that they'll be able to use that as a chip on their shoulder and come into the season and hopefully find a, you know, good blend between all these guys and be able to go out there and put together a great piece out on the diamond.
So a little bit of them forgetting about Florida, right? Because they hadn't been in the national spotlight the last year That by the last 2 years, maybe that's it. They tend to overlook them. We'll see what happens there for sure. Well, all right. Let's talk a little bit about football. You looking forward to spring practice?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I cannot wait. I don't know if you saw or any of you guys saw any of the new technology, the View technology.
Tell us about it. I read some of the story. You covered it. What is this new technology called VU?
Yeah, so VU technology. I wrote an article on it about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and they showcased it for DJ Lagway's first visit coming after his commitment. And if you're on Twitter or anything like that, you're able to go see DJ Lagway's post. It's in my post, but it's kind of just more so a more high definition, unique way of being able to produce those, cool graphics and stuff like that coming out of the tunnel. And it's a technology biz company that has done commercials for Super Bowl, stuff like that. And it's the first of its kind for, college football recruiting. And it's not even used for just football. The baseball team was able to do preseason stuff and softball, gymnastics.
Is it just media? Is that what it is for the media? To you put in social media?
More so. Yeah, more so for social media. And then, they were also showcasing today how even like they'll bring cameras in the game. I saw a really cool angle of it almost looked like a drone coming out when the Gator football team was coming out of the tunnel. So kind of just more cool perspectives and just a more advanced AI kind of outlook on, I guess, Florida Gator sports. So it's super neat, and I think it adds kind of a different aspect than other schools might be able to.
They ain't going to need any of us media guys. We're all going to be, they'll do everything by AI. They won't get you to write stories. They'll get some machine to write your stories and what have you. It's crazy what's going on. But I was enjoyed my conversation with Scott Carter because he interviewed Graham Mertz, and we haven't had that opportunity yet. And he sat down with him because he obviously is a writer for FloridaGators.com, and he made a point to impress me. And I haven't heard much about Mertz except what we read. And he said one thing that really impressed Mertz. He came here in December to look things over. He absolutely loved how hard the players got coached. He said, I want that. I want to be coached hard like that. And that's a positive sign right there. That one thing that some players don't want to be coached hard, as you know. And this guy is that kind of work ethic and has the talent. Urban Meyer told me that he said he's met the kid when he was recruiting him. And thought he was a heck of a good prospect. So, I don't know. Maybe there's something there, Kyle. You think?
I think that's kind of it describes the perfect kind of player that Billy Napier was looking for in a quarterback, someone who's able to come in and not only be able to perform on the level that he wants to perform, but also be susceptible to, critiques, coaching. And obviously Billy Napier is super close with the QBs. That's a main part of his thing. He's the QB coach, yada, yada, yada. But a player who is able to take criticism just as well as being able to take success is, that's equally important to a coach. And I think that's kind of one of the key things that Billy Napier was looking for in someone that he wants to come in and be able to lead his program. So I think that, those are just traits that, reinstilled Billy Napier's beliefs going through that process, trying to find a guy. And that's only going to make his product better on the field, is it being able to, take the criticism, being able to learn new stuff, learn new systems, being a team guy. So I think having that mindset is the only mindset that you can have if you want this program to grow.
For sure. Well, I'm going to let you get back to your late night stuff and wrap up this part of the show because we started late. But let me do this commercial real fast. I'll come back and get your final thoughts on things, all right?
Awesome. Sounds good.
Kyle Curtis after this message from our friends at Titan MRI.
Things have certainly got a little out of hand lately when it comes to just buying our everyday necessities. Just look at gas, streaming services, and heck, even chicken wings. Well, there is one necessity that shouldn't cost a ton: taking care of yourself and helping fix all the aches and pains in life, and the fine folks at Titan MRI agree. With costs a fraction of what you'd pay at a hospital, you'll not only save money, you'll be taken care of by staff with over 20 years experience. So when you need an MRI, call Titan first, and you can go where your doctors send their families. Now offering CAT scans.
All right, thanks, Jeff Cardoza. Appreciate that very much. Thanks to Titan MRI. Kyle, you're getting ready to set up your spring schedule and then your summer. Why don't you outline what you got planned this spring and what you'll be doing? And for those who don't know, Kyle is a junior at the University of Florida in majoring in communications, and he's certainly come a long way, and we appreciate all his contributions. So you'll be full on it during the spring. You got baseball, you got spring football, etc. Talk about what the spring looks like for you.
Yeah, so obviously, super excited for baseball and softball season. I hope to go out to a few games, or a lot of those games, and be able to, find guys that I'm able to do some features on and stuff like that, being able to kind of follow the baseball team, because I really do think that this is going to be a memorable season for Florida baseball. I think the lineup's there, everything like that. So softball, basketball, and then spring practices for football. I'm more optimistic than most for, the second season of Billy Napier, and I'm excited to see what he kind of gets to implement with his guys. I think that this is kind of his first full cycle where he's able to do what he wants with, his people in the program. So I'm excited to kind of see what that looks like. And yeah, I'm excited to keep giving stuff to everyone out there, and look forward to keep growing as a writer and as a student, and trying to enjoy my last few semesters here in the swamp.
Talk about your buddy Matt before we let you go. His name was popping up more and more. A good friend of yours. You guys do things. Talk about Matt, who he is, what he does, and we'll have to get him on the show one night.
Yeah, we'll get him on the show. He's a great guy. Matt Corderaro, he's from New York. The only bad thing I can say about him is big Giants fan, big Knicks fan. He'll talk my ear off about all that stuff, but he's one of the most talented writers I've ever met. I always go to him before sending articles in or stuff like that, have him read it over, and it's fun sitting there having sports debates and stuff like that. So I'm excited for all you guys to officially meet him and stuff like that, but he's been putting great stuff out there, and I encourage everyone to read it. So I'm excited to have him on the team.
One of the cool things about Gator Bait is it's not just us old guys like Franz and Buddy. It's also the young guys like Kyle and Matt, and as well as others. And by the way, Dan Bond doing a terrific job writing stuff about gymnastics in a way I've never seen before. I'm learning a lot about it. So this collaborative group of people that we call Gator Bait, terrific bunch of folks. We do our best to bring you something interesting. And by the way, if you're not subscribing, check it out, GatorBaitMedia.com, and read some of the things that Kyle's doing, and Matt and others. So, all right, buddy, good job. Thanks for hanging in there, all right?
Yeah, of course. Thank you guys. You guys all have a good night.
All right, thanks very much. Kyle Curtis coming to you live from the campus of the University of Florida, and hanging in there. Let's see. For those you didn't know, you should have heard by now. Florida beat Ole Miss tonight, but lost Colin Castleton with a broken hand. The extent, we don't know what, but probably not going to be good. So I was going to talk a little bit about the quarterback situation tonight, but we'll save that for tomorrow night. Talking about who might be the next one up, what's happened to Anthony Richardson. He's going to go pretty high. Talk about Jack Miller is still hanging in there. The newcomer, Mertz, talk about him. You heard us talk about Kyle with tonight. Kyle. We're talking to Kyle and also our other friends tonight. All right, so I'm going to wrap it up right here and say we'll catch up to you tomorrow night. We'll have the boys on. Let's see, we'll have France will be on. Of course, it's Thursday night. That means it's Orange and Blue Blood Thursday, and it's Ben Troop Night. He'll be joining us. Talk to Ben today. And Lauren Meadows, the coach, will be on here as well. So it's going to be a good group. And if we wrap up our show, Gator Babe will come out tomorrow night. We'll be doing that. So thanks tonight. We're going to have Nick Delatorre on tonight, but he has some illness in the family, and all the best to him. And turns out we were down anyway with the internet. So thanks to Scott Carter. Thanks to Kyle Curtis. Thanks to you for listening, and I'll catch up to you tomorrow night. I'm going to tell you about our friends over at Titan, over at WinStar Medical Research. We wrap up with every night. They do a terrific job downtown as a stakeholder. They also have a reputation, deservedly so, as a high-quality, patient-centered clinical research facility. They bring cutting-edge clinical research trials to Ocala in areas like Alzheimer's, psoriasis, osteoarthritis, migraines, fibromyalgia, along with many other conditions that affect our community. You can be a part of this if you'd like. They do these clinical trials, and if you want to be a part of them, the compensation for time and travel, go on their website, winstar.net, and check out the things they have and what they have them on. Since their inception, they've done over 700 of these clinical research trials, continue to partner with prominent pharmaceutical and biomedical companies throughout the medical industry. WinStar Medical Research, seeking tomorrow's answers to the health questions of today. Thanks for their sponsorship. Thanks for Meldon Law. Thanks to Titan MRI. And thanks to our guests tonight, Scott Carter and Kyle Curtis. Good night, folks. See you back here tomorrow night. Hopefully we won't have the internet problems. Be nice.